Hey, it's Chris Gio from Merchant Method, and I am really excited to welcome you to this week's episode of Retail Charm School. This week, we are doing an Ask Me Anything, a live Q&A session, really in celebration of your resilience as a small business owner in this time when there are so many more unknowns than there are knowns. You'll find me today joined by both Poppery, formerly Open City Market, and Sendle, a certified B Corp carbon neutral shipping company. And I've got some really amazing questions, particularly for my makers, for my merchants that sell in person, shoulder to shoulder alongside other makers like yourselves. So those who tend to sell at maker festivals, pop-ups like with Poppery, at farmers markets, this episode goes out directly to you. Now, if you're joining me live and haven't had a chance to ask your question, go ahead and pop it in the comments below. I know I would appreciate it, and we've got both Poppery and Sendle moderating some comments in the Q&A as well. So there's a lot of love surrounding you. We've got Sam. Hi, Sam. I'm excited to have you here. All Dog Kind. And Anna Banana. Oh, good morning. Gorgeous to you. I am excited to have you here with me again. We're going to get going in just a bit, but for those of you who are just getting to know me and who I am, my name is Chris Gio, and I am a merchant just like you. I have a huge heart for small businesses and a big heart for the things that bring us a lot of joy, that remind us of a lot of memories, and that are become really important parts of our lives. Anything from a necklace to a dress to a notebook to something that I buy for the people I love the most. That is what my jam is, and I know it is yours as well. Over here at Merchant Method, I support small businesses and have been doing a lot of that these past few weeks. And in partnership with Poppery and with Sendle, we're just trying to figure out how we can do our part to keep the connection and keep the support high vibe. All right, Megan's here. Hi, Megan. I'm excited to have you. So without further ado, let's just get to it. And as you join us, keep popping in your questions below, but we're going to hop on to it. So the first question is, what are your thoughts about strategies for small businesses to stay connected with customers during this time of physical distancing? And have you seen any success stories out there right now? Tons of success stories, but let's go ahead and start with strategies for small businesses to stay connected when our MO, what really drives us, is full-on personal connection. It's so funny. I love it because my son's here asking me if he can have snacks, and the answer is yes. Okay. So part of staying close with your customers when you cannot be with them, say, in real life or face-to-face, is to really start by loving up on the customers who already love you. And I call that intimacy. I call it pulling people who are close even closer. And that part is really important, not just to say, hey, I'm here for you. And also not just to say, hey, I always have your back and I actually need you to have my back now too. But because there is so much information out there. There's so much marketing, messaging, information, misinformation, combined with the fact that we as humanity are trying to understand, how do we use our time differently? What are the new expectations others have for us? What are the expectations we have for ourselves? And as such, our normal marketing is not really going to work in a time like this. Not merely because if we just presumed nothing happened and we went out with regular messaging, it would be very incongruous, but also there is so much more out of syncness, asynchronicity than there's ever been before. And so when we think through how do we get a message, and really what's a two-way message, because we're both informing and calling our customers to action, the best way to get that asynchronous message heard and to activate customers is to start with the ones that already love you. So I would say stay connected with customers by pulling those who are close even closer. And seriously, any way that you have done that in the past is going to work just fine. If you are an Instagrammer, keep doing that. If you're a live streamer, do that. If you send email, I don't like calling them newsletters. If you send customer emails through an email service provider like MailChimp, keep doing that. If you write personalized emails, keep doing that. Like, do you even more? That's like the first place to start. Then when we think about maybe activating or reaching out to new customers, like in this kind of concept of customer acquisition, I would just remember that marketing and really strategies for staying connected with customers, customer loyalty, that's all wrapped up in capital M marketing, is a long game. So remember, even though you might be in pivot mode, recovery mode, a new channel of driving sales mode, that the long game continues to be the long game. I'm a huge fan of anything that is multisensory. So for layering in visuals like photos, visuals like video, audio, even voicemails, I'm a huge fan of it because it increases the personalization of the message you're trying to send out. So even if you simply pick up your camera, like I am, and just send a pre-recorded message or a live message, that is the easiest piece of tech thing that you can do right now. You've got these platforms. I mean, we can talk very long-term around where you want to build your audience, but if we're talking about pulling customers in, I love video, I love voicemails, I love DMs. Experiment. I think when it comes to thinking through the best way to reach customers, there are very smart marketing people that are going to help you optimize upon what already works. For me, my preference for you is just to get you going and get you activated. That's what I would love, to get you going and started or doing a layer up. So go easy on yourself. Take it easy on yourself. Set realistic expectations. If it's just a skosh better, that's amazing. I think this use of live video, using social media, using common hashtags has had a lot of success, particularly in the Seattle market area. Customers are buying as they are able to. They're buying e-gift certificates and gift certificates. I think that piece is really quite evident in Seattle of the power of the ask, because we've been drawing customers closer and closer. So for any of the number of businesses in the retail space, the maker space, cafes, restaurants, services, if they've been able to recoup some of the lost revenue from their customers, it's because they're pulling closer. I would just say, if you are wanting some of that financial support, I think of it like a microloan, revolving loan funds, micro enterprise, borrowing at almost like no interest from your customers for the time being, a la e-gift certificates. Just make sure that you have a way to manage through accepting, issuing an e-certificate or a gift card, and then for customers to be able to redeem it. All right, I hope that answers your question. Okay, are we ready for the next one? Before we hop on to the next one, I would love to know, it's been several weeks. I remember thinking about how to keep employees safe in a retail space, how to help teams create phone trees and emergency plans that were more HR related, like back in early March. So there's been opportunities for us as individual business owners to activate our customers. So have you found something, like a particular way, a method of communication, even specific phrases that are allowing you to stay connected with customers and stay close even though there's physical distancing? Like, I would love to know. Can you pop it in the comments? Because I would love to generate ideas and for you all to have some shout outs. When I think through what's worked well for me, video. I'm a huge fan of video, always have been. And just because I'm a fan of video, it doesn't mean that I've always been super comfortable with it. So it's taken time. The best thing that I've done is remember I'm not talking to myself, that I am putting a face to a name and looking past the camera into the lens and trying to make sure I'm talking to another human being. So I would love to know if you've got things that work. And for me, I'm just like popping into these comments here and just seeing what we've got going on. To a name oh, look at this. Past the camera into oh, the look, I'm listening to myself. We're good. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Thank you all for the love. Okay, so the next question. With much of retail switching to online sales for a while, how can small businesses stand out in the crowd? I love one particular word in this question so much. Oh, let's go back. Because Jen is the U.S. Community Manager of Sendle, and she loves staying connected with people through Google Hangouts. And that's how I met Jen, actually, like last week or the week before through Google Hangouts. So she loves using Google Hangouts as a way to chat with customers, to check in, and have an actual face-to-face connection. I love it. You know what's so interesting is I used Google Hangouts and then I stopped, and now I'm back to it. And the reason why I'm back to it is because the barrier for the other person to use Google Hangouts is so low. And I love apps. I love the Marco Polo app, which allows me to send like face-to-face little snippet walkie-talkie type things. I love WhatsApp. I like just recording audio on my phone and sending it as a text. What I love so much about something that requires such low barrier to usage is that it's just like a one-click wonder. And that's the beauty of Google Hangouts. And so I love that Sendle is like fan of Google Hangouts. I'm just starting to tap into the video-based DM. I'm just, you know me, I'm a huge fan of Facebook, and I'm trying to play a little bit more with Instagram. I started very early on by sending video emails and having to have a lot of rigor around what is the one or two things I want to communicate. How do I keep myself on track so that I don't ramble off track? And then, you know, how do I ask the recipient to play with me and, you know, help me get comfortable with being on video by experimenting with me. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing Google Hangouts. Yeah, Google Hangouts for the win. Okay, so let's go back to, with much of retail switching to online sales for a while, how can small businesses stand out in the crowd? And I love that bit of for a while, because I think that the huge switch truly is for a while. Now, what's happening is if you're not currently positioned to sell, generate revenue, transact online, you're probably thinking through, how do I mobilize quickly so that I can do that? Not merely for the sake of immediacy, but also with the willingness and openness to think about it long term. And what I love about the word for a while is I want you to be thinking through, this is for a while. It will be a channel that you'll use, and I hope you do use it, and I hope you cultivate online-only customers. But what is so amazing about you, what's so unique, what's so powerful about you as someone who runs a physical business in real life, selling face-to-face, it's that classic merchant-customer relationship. So don't lose it. So the best way to stand out from the crowd sometimes is actually just to stop paying attention to what everyone else is doing, which is a little bit oxymoronic. Stay connected online, don't pay attention online. Use technology, but don't overuse technology. And there's something really beautiful about this dialectic management, about acknowledging both ends of a spectrum and just like settling in somewhere in the middle. When I say, stop paying attention to what everyone else is doing in order for you to be able to stand out from the crowd, what I mean by that is I'm not saying put your head in the sand. Absolutely not. Understanding what's happening around you is absolutely critical. But if it's at the expense of your own voice, if it's at the expense of your own brand and your own aesthetic, stop. Because you'll gather creative inspiration. Please do that. But what you don't want to do is copy someone else. What you don't want to do is feel inferior to someone else. What you don't want to do is wait till it's pixel perfect like someone else's online presence before you even start. Now, your customers, our customers, are even more forgiving for what an e-commerce site might look like now more than ever before. So just let yourself think lean and think functional, right? Because it's always function over form. So as long as you continue to make the choices you're making about how you are going to move online, as long as you're doing them in accordance with your values and you're not compromising your brand values, you're going to be fine. As long as the words that you put down in your written copy are pretty similar to the words that you would use transacting with customers, do that. You're going to be fine. And remember, swiftness and moving forward and progress, you get credit for all of that. It doesn't have to be perfect. You will keep iterating on it. And the one thing I know to be true from any web developer, any person who writes copy for sites or does graphic design for sites, is a site is never done. So think about when you set out a booth and you set out your merchandise and you're going to keep re-merchandising it. Or think about when you are designing new products and then you want to change it just a little bit for the next season. Same thing goes for your website. You publish it and then you're going to keep changing it and republishing it. So just remember, keep your voice. And if you're feeling like you can't hear your voice, stop looking at the competition. It's not serving you anymore. The more practical thing I was thinking about to switching for online sales for a while is you'll want to minimize how much of a demand there is on your time, right? So we're not trying to completely reinvent the wheel of selling online. So if platforms do exist now, maybe consider a platform that allows you to ship or a platform that allows you to sell online versus trying to build everything from the ground up, because what you need really are the capabilities, the backbone of the capabilities, and then maybe later you can figure out how to customize it 100% completely to your vision. Oh, hey, Nicole, I'm excited you're here. If you have a question, feel free to pop it in. And before we move on to the next question, can you, like a show of hands, has anyone switched to selling online that hasn't been selling online before this? Number one. And number two, can I get like some thumbs up if you're feeling like there's a lot of marketing messaging and even paid ads online? I'm like, for me, I feel like my Facebook feed is now a 3-for-1. It's one ad for every 3 posts from friends and other people that I'm connected with on Facebook. So there's a lot of paid ads and there's a lot of generosity of spirit. Yeah, Poppery's raising their hand. There's a lot of generosity of spirit. There's a lot of generosity of information, generosity of solutions, because this really is a long game. And to set yourself up for standing out in a crowded marketplace, I think maybe the reframe is, how do I make sure I'm playing the long game? And how do I make sure that I'm rooted in a message that is like very much my own message? Yeah, so lots of people are seeing so many ads. Nicole, let's connect afterwards. Anna's going to be like really going online. And it's so interesting because like Anna says, like that's her plan. And there's like a lot happening right now. There is a lot. And I want to just like pin that for a little bit after I read through the rest of these comments. Yep, Kat's saying so many ads. Yeah. So what's so interesting about putting more of an emphasis to online as a sales channel, there's two things. The first thing I want you to remember is if you are putting like concerted effort in there, I want you to remember that doing that is more than just a project. It's a project and you'll project manage it, but it's literally more than just a project. It's a whole new sales channel. It could feel like opening up a second physical location or opening up a new brand. It's a new way to transact with customers with its own complexities, guided by you as a business owner. So let yourself have a learning curve, set realistic expectations, and then multiply it that by 2 if you are caring for anyone in your home, like someone that has to homeschool or someone that wants snacks while you're live streaming. That's like my most vulnerable time is when the camera's on. Ask me for snacks, I'll always say yes. Or if you're caring for a family member or trying to figure any of life out, you just have to add extra time and then know that the learning curve doesn't always go up like that. Sometimes it goes up and down. I myself had huge tech problems this morning. My laptop keyboard doesn't work anymore. Like these things are bound to happen. And because the availability of the resources that we typically have are no longer, we need to account for that. So that piece. Then when it comes to prioritizing, right? Like how do you even pick? I mean, that requires its own like pause. Like how do you even pick? Because there's so much to do. Is like really acknowledging, oh, that's right. I actually have to pick and choose. And I have to mentally unburden myself from some of the things I really need to be doing because I just don't have capacity and I just don't have resources and I just don't have access. And just like acknowledging and like physically pinning it onto the corkboard and leaving it for another day, even that simple act of acknowledging, yeah, totally not this month. If it allows you to unburden and free up your brain from even tending to that thing, just put it up so that you can free yourself up or have a little bit more clarity for something else. And really, how I like to pick and choose things is I like to take my brand values. Like I will not stop talking about brand values. People call it guiding principles. You're like why you choose the things you do against these many overwhelming possible actions you can take, right? And some of them you have to take. There's no choice. It's about picking and choosing like what is most relevant right now to the needs of my business, or like what are the deadlines and how do I go ahead and continue to march forward against some deadlines. Oh yeah, so Poppery says for them in terms of like moving through and staying connected with customers and being agile and moving online, we were planning a big multi-venue fair in May as a launch of our new brand, but those plans are postponed. So now we're experimenting with virtual pop-ups to keep moving forward. And I love it. And that's what this is in celebration of, right? Like the events world just got their knees taken out from under them. And it really is what I love about us as creatives is we are problem solving. And I think creatives really are at their highest, like functionally creatively, if that's a phrase, as you start to put constraints. So we're going to see some really amazing ways to provide the value. Like Poppery's going to provide the value of multi-venue in-person events, maybe even in this like higher elevated, more gratifying, more functional, more convenient, everything by experimenting with virtual pop-ups. So I'm excited about that. I know Nicole loves selling in her store and not much online. And I think that's that shift for those of us that love the human. I see it all, I hear it all, we're hearing the same thing. Something about the face-to-face is synchronous. It just is. And because we've been closing doors and asking to be, be safer at home, the synchronicity is gone, and all the other benefits of synchronicity. And I remember when I started working in 2014 on Merchant Method, and everyone kept telling me, Chris, you really need to go online. And my thought, and I'm being like really honest and transparent here, was like, oh, hell no. No, I will never offer a program online. That feels gross to me. It feels disingenuous to me. I'm not that person that can create a perfect e-curriculum because I need to feed off the audience. And then I laugh at myself now because it's taken such a huge mental shift for me to understand and to know that the value of asynchronicity is real, that there's a real need for it, that I can still feel juiced up and connected because I'm actually talking to you right now, Nicole. That's really helped me shift a little bit. And so that shift is going to take some time, and it took me much longer because I am so stubborn. And I know you're not as stubborn as me. But customers too, like what you need are your customer counterparts to say, oh, hey, I find Chameleon online and we connect online. And now more than ever, small business supporters are kind of, and it's my hope, following you all where you're going, and then going to come back and be so excited to like see your faces and see your product, because touch and feel will always be important. All right. Oh my gosh. Okay. Here's the real thing. So Nicole says, as we think about shifting online, one of the scariest things is not to be able to meet the creative partners that are going to help you bring your creative vision to life. So whether you are a solo owner operator and you have been selling in markets and you're going to maybe participate in a virtual Poppery market, or you're someone like Nicole who has a long established brick and mortar business and is going to add online, that requires freelancers. Like I'm sure you've all maybe potentially have or will work with a freelancer. Some of the earliest freelancers to work with are bookkeepers. Then you move on to like photographers, graphic designers, web designers. And it is scary to invite, it takes a lot of, number one, a lot of vulnerability, but also a lot of vision, and a lot of like humility in the way that business owners are like humble servants to their customers. It takes a lot to invite a creative into your business. And I think that a piece of inviting someone to help you with that creative vision is twofold. Number one, it's about having a strong, being able to articulate with a combination of written word, verbal words, visuals, and anything else you use to express your feelings, like gestures, and even songs, smells, foods. That clarity of communication about like what it is, what you're trying to evoke, along with the right person's like skill set, and saying, hey, you've got a skill set I don't have, and thank goodness, because I really need you right now. And so when I say, when it comes to like inviting people into the business, is yes, we're moving quickly. Yes, we're being responsive. Yes, we have real bills to pay, like real bills to pay. And we need revenue, like last month. is this relationship, like if you can't go slow and find the right vendor partner, check every reference you can. Go to their portfolio, reach out to people that are featured in their portfolio is another really good way to say, okay, I feel a little bit more comfortable. But then always remember, you bring the cultural clarity, and then this other person brings their technical creativity, and that is actually a pretty amazing thing. Okay, so let's go to this next question. So the third question is, what are some pitfalls and potential mistakes businesses can make in switching to an online strategy? Yeah, switching to an online strategy. So, okay, so the first thing I want you to remember, particularly if you're accustomed to selling at a pop-up, like with Poppery, is, when we start, we usually vend in person and we sell in person, and then then someone takes the products away and they go home and they love it and use it and tell their friends. One of the things I want you to think about when you're moving to shipping, and Jen, please, we've got like a Sendle expert with us, so she'll be commenting in case I get it wrong or she has something much smarter or wiser to share, is I want you to remember that shipping is another thing. There are actual regulations around what can be shipped. And so I want you to acknowledge that. And if you think that your product is under the purview of these regulations, start thinking through compliance, right? So then there's shipping, and then there's shipping compliance. And I'm not merely speaking about weight compliance, dimension compliance. I'm talking about, like, can you ship liquids? Like if you make bubble bath, what would it mean to ship something if your package is glass and it's liquid? Or if you sell cookies by the singles, right? And then a customer can just get a cookie and walk the market, thinking through what does packaging look like? And how do you maintain the freshness, and how do you keep your cookies from getting crushed? So if there is issues of delicacy and breakage, or if there are regulations under it, start to get a little bit more familiar with how others in your space ship those things. And this is where the research and borrowing from other people's successes can be really, really helpful. Because I think if we just automatically go to shipping and we're not thinking through what is the nature of that product and how does that product need to be cared for, it might slow us down a little bit. So I think that's probably kind of the biggest thing. And then the second thing is communication around expectations. So in the whole that is the internet, customers like to be clear about when things get shipped, maybe how they get shipped right now in a world of COVID-19, like how are they getting shipped? How are they getting cared for? How often you're shipping? Is there going to be a tracking number associated with it? Is there an opportunity for expedited shipping? And then what policies might there be around returns or exchanges? Like these are all kind of really more technical things, but just because they're technical, it does not mean that you don't put your spin on it, because you can write out the communication information in your voice. You can decide what's right for you. If you do feel comfortable and are capable of daily ships, you can do that. If you feel more comfortable with shipping once a week, you can do that, so long as there is communication. Then you'll want to make sure customers have a way of connecting with you if they have questions. Like those are some of the things I want you to think through. And so oftentimes, this might be where in your email service provider, like maybe you have MailChimp, I know a lot of brands do, or they're doing their email marketing through Square, where you might set up some type of automated sequence that says your order shipped, here's a tracking number, and then 2 weeks later, you might send another email that says, hey, I'd love to know, I see that you should have gotten your package by now. I'd love to know how you're using it. How do you like it? Do you need any tips? These are the types of things you can think through as there's still more to the relationship throughout this process. Yeah, that's what I would think about. Okay, oh yes, okay, so we've got our expert here. So Sendel says, let's move this question. Oh, yes. Okay, Sendel's where it's at if you have really specific questions about the types of products you're packing. And Sendel also says, oh wait, no, what am I doing here? Definitely look at how others are shipping, their timeline, their boxes, because we do not need to reinvent the wheel. Exactly, like people have been shipping for ages. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Here, let's borrow on other people's expertise, and then you get started. And then you figure out what works for you. And then once you're started and you've been shipping for a while, then you can start to fine tune and change and optimize. Okay. All right, let's take a look. Hey, if you all are shipping with Sendel, I know those packages. They're compostable, they're black. I've seen them on people's Instagram feeds. Can you just pop it below because I'd love to know. Okay. All right, let's get on to oh, okay. So Anna says, from the Pretty Parlor, I actually have made 3 doorstep deliveries now. The last one I offered to stop at Dick's on the way and picked up some cheeseburgers and fries. I love it because people still are accepting deliveries at doors. And if you are thinking creatively that way, like Anna is, and maybe if you set some parameters around like where you might be willing to drive, or maybe even just adding like a nominal charge for deliveries that might be outside of like a certain radius, customers would love that because it oftentimes is that personalization. And when we go back to the question of how do you stand out from others in a crowd during this time of shipping online for a while, is keeping it personal. It's so easy to keep adding apps and to keep thinking that we need to optimize and fine tune, but there's something about personalization and keeping it human that is not efficient at all. And that inefficiency of humanity is what's actually going to allow you to stand out from a crowd. So just think about personal shopping a la the 1990s, early 2000s, where we remembered and we did thoughtful things that were inconvenient. I love this, Anna. Okay. Okay, so we answered that question. All right, so our next question is, how should small businesses be thinking about inventory management in uncertain times like this? Okay, let's talk about inventory management. If you are a retailer with lots of inventory, I want to know. If you are a maker and you make in order to have enough for your shows, let me know, because I think that the concerns are really, really different when it comes to inventory management. So oftentimes, for my retailers like Nicole, like Anna, like Megan here, like Kat, there is just a lot of inventory on hand, right? In order to drive the amount of revenue you want to drive, you need a certain amount of choice for every dollar. So if this concept of stock to sales is newer to you, I like to think of it like this. For every 1 pair of jeans I want to sell, like just think about the last time you bought like a pair of jeans or a luggage or a swimsuit. How many did you look at? How much did you pull into a fitting room? How much research did you do? How many stores did you go to? For the types of products that we sell, if we want to sell like 1, we pretty much have to show choice to customers, otherwise they won't choose. We don't want to have too many choices because they'll be overwhelmed, and we don't want to have too few choices because then they won't choose. So think about it. Like, think about when you went to, like, if you've ever been to like an event with coffee and donuts. Like, I think of it as like a classic office meeting or like a classic brunch thing. You show up, no one's touched anything, the plate full of donuts looks amazing, and no one wants to like get rid of it. Like, no one wants to touch it because they don't want to mess up the look. On the other end, like if there's like a last donut, maybe half a donut, like that donut's still good, but no one wants to touch it because they don't want to take the last one. And for some reason, they can't trust the last donut, even though donuts have been available for only 20 minutes. So we have to find like an average for us. Typically, if you're dealing in the kinds of products we're dealing with, about 3 to 4. So for every $1 that you want to sell in revenue, you need to offer about $3 to $4 in retail. Or for every like $1,000 you want to sell, you have about $3,000 to $4,000 of retail inventory to choose from. It's just like a general rule. And so when you are driving to that revenue, in proportion to the space that you have, a lot of retailers are sitting on a lot of inventory. If you are maybe selling in pop-ups and online, your inventory might be a little bit smaller. So kind of take this with a grain of salt. And what I'll say is this: there will be no shortage of inventory going into the third quarter. For me, the third quarter is August, September, October. So I'm a retailer, but you could think of it as like July, August, September. But going into August, September, October, there will be no shortage of inventory. In fact, there is way too much inventory circulating in the world right now. And so if you're not in a position to offer to incent purchases now through promotional pricing, right? Because for a lot of us, the margins are really thin. And what I would hate for you to do is to take a blanket percent off and not think about the implications it has for profit, but also being aware that you need cash, right? This is like a pretty complex formula. Is I would think through, do I really need to buy inventory into Q3 or Q4? I would be really thinking through, how do I mitigate any potential risk I have now? What orders could I cancel out of? What might I be able to return to vendor? This is like a pretty complex set of questions. Do I stop buying raw materials for production? And if you're left with a certain amount of inventory, I would be thinking through, what is the most seasonal now? What has the nearest term expiration date? And so what I mean by that is, if you're dealing in beauty product or food, you have a very real expiration date. If you're dealing with seasonal goods like bikinis, you have a very real expiration date. And so I'd be thinking through promoting a select portion of your merchandise and being a little bit more narrowly focused on that, and thinking through how you might remessage and resell and rephotograph the rest of it later. Because if you separate what's seasonal from maybe a little like what's more classic or what's more basic, that has a little bit more longevity that you can think about and worry about selling later in the year, and think through this piece that's a little bit more seasonal. So then the question comes up of, okay, I've sold through a ton of stuff. Like, let's just say, for example, I'm promoting, this is like, I have the worst props right now. This coffee mug. Maybe I'll save the story for later. And I've sold this because this is what people can buy and this is how they can support me. And amazing, I had 30 and I sold through. And you get to the question of, should I reorder? That's a big question. Like, should you reorder something that you know is a slam dunk? You can only do what's right for you. Really, you can only do what's right for you. Here are some things I want you to consider. Is, could you take, the number 10 item on your list, this water bottle, and give it the same love and the same attention and market it in a different way so that this can start to pick up and you can sell through this. Like I would rather you, if you sell out of the red lipstick, sell the pink lipstick. If you sell out of the pink lipstick, sell the coral lipstick. If you sell out of the coral, sell the purple. And just start making your way through the inventory liability you have. With caution, I would proceed to, really think through some of the math around the liability of buying more inventory at this time. If you're a maker, like one of the things I know to be true about my makers, and I know this to be true about myself, like I could just keep like buying stuff and buying stuff and buying stuff. This might be the time for you to take your raw materials and make them into products. The nice thing about taking raw materials and moving them into product state is then you could start to generate revenue off of them. So I would kind of like clear the docks of what you have already. Times are uncertain, and I tend to play it more conservative, but just because they're uncertain, it does not mean that you should get a pass at doing any math. You still have to do the math, and you could do math based on what you know, and based on it going better than you think, and based on it going worse than you think. The plan is important because it grounds us and it sets the boundaries for the way that we're going to make decisions in the future. So I would say, for me, play it conservative, sell what you have. If you have raw materials, maybe you can convert it into product that you can sell. Okay, so Kat says, and like Kat, I'm going to call this on screen because I know a lot of people are in your position. For apparel, just in general, when you're working in wholesale and retail, so like small batch manufacturing and then retail, even retail, small business retail, the lead time is long. And so this position is classic. Order inventory 6 months out and it's all coming in now. And on top of it coming in now, ordering for fall. And so not only would any boutique be sitting on spring, summer's coming in now, and then the question is, haven't sold through spring, when in the world am I going to sell through summer? And now, should I be thinking about fall? I would really, this is where like having retail pals helps. This is about understanding what new trend and new customer trend might be. And this is where assessing the risk of what you're willing to take on and how quickly you can get out of things, right? So, for example, if someone's maybe looking through fall, what we like to do as store owners is we like to think of like the whole store. And how could a whole store tell a really comprehensive story? Well, maybe it might be a good time to think through, if push comes to shove, and there is pushing and shoving right now, how am I picking and choosing? And and that might mean I'm sacrificing a full store visual message. It may mean that my vignettes change. It may mean that the store the blueprint might change. It may mean that I take fixtures off the floor because I have less product. I love moving fixtures on and off the floor based on how much inventory there is. Customers don't know. I mean, if they do know and recognize that you've pulled fixtures off the floor, it actually feels like if you're moving it around enough, it can feel just like a different exploratory path, different path of circulation, or that there's a different the blueprint equivalent of selling online, that the categories change. So I'd be thinking through, okay, if push comes to shove and my dollars are really, really low and I'm missing out, what would it mean to buy for a different end vessel? If your vessel is your store plan or your web shop. The second thing I would be thinking through is like diving into your Dear Diary notes. We're getting like real specific here. Diving into your Dear Diary notes and asking yourself like, what sold at this time period last year and the year before? How has it changed? I'm not saying that you're going to find every answer in the past because it's different. What I'm hoping happens is that you get more and more information in your toolkit that you're going to use to make some very calculated, risky decisions. The more informed you are, that's really the best that we can be in making choices in such an uncertain environment. I liken it to a commercial airline pilot who is rated to fly the instrument. So commercial pilots are instrument rated, right? So they're not necessarily looking out the window. They're just like use their thing, which is how Scully was able to land that plane in the river. We don't know what the environment is. We don't know what it's going to hold, but you do know what your threshold is. You do know what your threshold for risk is. You do know what you have a capacity for in terms of doing like high touch things like doorstop deliveries in person, or adding Sendle as a partner for shipping, or participating in virtual pop-ups, or selling online, or even like Anna had asked about selling through Facebook and connecting that through IG. Like, you know your capacity to take on the things that are available for now, and just think of it as your control panel as you think about what you might buy. I will say this: there's going to be a lot of inventory in the fall. And whether or not that comes from your current vendor base, someone's going to have inventory to sell. It might not technically be the freshest, but I don't think anyone's going to be super looking for fresh right now. Not customers, but there's going to be more wholesale inventory and people are going to need to sell it. I don't know. Those are just my 2 cents. If you are thinking about fall orders now, can you just pop it in the comments and share how you're thinking about buying for fall? Like, I know for Pretty Parlor, like, fall's a big deal. Halloween's a big deal. Themed parties are a big deal. Holiday parties are a big deal. Wedding season's a big deal. So if you're thinking through that, I'd love to know. All right. Yeah, Nicole's not buying anything new except puzzles. All right. Okay, so here's a few questions that I got, and I'll be honest, I don't have the answers. So Anna asked about, what about a Facebook store? I heard you can sell directly from Instagram through the Facebook shop, but do I know about this, Chris? I don't, but I want to connect you with Nicole. So I'm going to pull up Nicole on here. And Nicole Pashad, Nicole, I hope I get that right. I hope I pronounced it correctly. She started her Facebook store and they need really high resolution images. Instagram is much more lenient. Maybe the two of you can have a Capitol Hill Ballard retail love connection and share thoughts around setting up the Facebook store to cross-post to Instagram. It's a powerful tool, particularly if any of you decide to live stream. Because if you're live streaming, I believe in the app, like native in the app, you can actually pull in items from your Facebook store. So let me give you an example. So I think about 2.5 weeks ago, I did a partner Facebook live stream with Kat and Chica Valoria. And it was fun. We were still in the shop because we could be. And they started doing live stream now. Let's say, for example, if they have stuff listed in the store, like products listed in Facebook, if they wanted to go live, you can actually post links for purchasing through Facebook. That's like an advantage of thinking through, how do I double up on platform use to draw people closer? In this way that we're doing live video. Oh my gosh, and this is like a real thing. And this is when, okay, so Nicole's comment is real, and I'm sharing it because it's real. In particular, I'm concerned about how to think through success for holiday 2020, because that piece is a big deal because it requires a huge inventory investment now. And so for a lot of retailers thinking through, how do I buy for inventory if the physical brick and mortar is not where customers want to buy? If you don't have a space to house it, what does that look like? And, I don't have an answer right now because I really don't. There's so much is changing, but some of the things that I've been doing, and I know you and I, Nicole, run totally different businesses, is starting to have more exploratory conversations about what's possible. So even if I think through, okay, if I had a business that sold a lot of Christmas decor and I worked with other vendors that were maybe small to medium-sized businesses, what would I try and float their way? Would I be thinking potentially about drop ship so that I don't have to take the full liability of ownership? Or some version of drop, like something in between, right? Where you don't have to physically house all the inventory or even buy all the inventory up front. It moves the liability over to someone else. But in this time, we want to be more partners. So might I approach someone to say, hey, how do we think about a dropship partnership where I will write a minimum amount, and this amount I will for sure be buying from you, so that there's some level of certainty. So I would just be thinking through, you know how we were saying, take your customers and pull them closer. Take some of your best vendors now and start pulling them closer and think through, what does it look like? What does a different way of operating look like? And it might mean that you are borrowing on techniques that already work like dropship, or you're creating new partnerships, or you're developing a level of trust where you might have access to each other's pieces of the business. Who knows? All I know is that this community of merchants is extremely creative, and we're just scratching the surface of how to be agile and responsive until we get back to being able to sell online. But yes, the lead times are long, and yes, the challenges are real, and all we can do is continue to try and ideate with each other. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're already at a full hour. I want to say thank you so much. I want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. I'll be going back into the comments. The Potpourri crew, the Sendle crew will be going back into the comments too as it relates to virtual pop-ups and as it relates to shipping. And so I just want to give my quick shout outs. Yeah. Next Tuesday, we're going to be doing some fun IG. It'll be kind of really my first time getting pulled into someone's IG Live for their virtual pop-up. Sendle. Boop, boop, boop. Connecting with them. I'm going to have Jen, the U.S. community manager, on as soon as I get my tech figured out. There's some issues here. But if you have more questions, I'll answer these to the best of my ability. You can always and have always been able to ask me whatever you want. I'm really love hearing what questions are out there, and you sharing your challenges with me challenges me to think differently too, because no one knows what's happening. So you can pop your questions if they're real specific to me at merchant.tips/question, merchant.tips/question. You can also always DM me here, post below. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'm going to take us out with a little music. I think you're amazing, and your work totally matters. Ugh. Okay, bye.